The crystal champagne glasses clinked as my stepfather, Richard Morrison, raised a toast at Centrix Solutions' annual company gala. To another record year, he beamed, his custom tuxedo gleaming under the chandeliers. And to knowing your proper place in the corporate hierarchy, his eyes fixed meaningfully on me as he said those last words. I kept my face carefully neutral, smoothing down my simple black dress, the nicest one I could afford on a secretary's salary. 3 years. That's how long I'd worked at Centrix, officially as an executive assistant, unofficially building the software that would revolutionize the entire industry. Not that anyone knew that. To them, I was just Emma Chen, the stepdaughter who needed to be kept in her place. Emma, darling, my mother Catherine appeared at my elbow, her smile strained. Perhaps you should get back to the registration desk. There are still guests arriving. I knew what she really meant. Get out of sight before Richard finds another reason to remind everyone of my station. Of course, Mom. I squeezed her hand gently. The past 5 years hadn't been easy on her, watching her new husband systematically crush her daughter's ambitions. As I headed back to the entrance, I heard Richard's booming voice. Ah, Mr. Phillips. Welcome to Centrix Solutions. I see you've met my stepdaughter. Excellent at handling coat checks, isn't she? James Phillips, CEO of Phillips Global, one of our biggest potential clients, gave me a dismissive glance. If only they knew that the software demo they'd be seeing tomorrow, the one that could save Phillips Global millions in operating costs, had been entirely written by the coat check girl. My phone buzzed quietly in my clutch. A message from Marcus Kane, my secret partner at Nova Technologies, the tech startup I'd been building in parallel with my day job at Centrix. Major news. The venture capital round closed. $500 million valuation. When are you going to tell them? I smiled, thinking of the hidden laptop in my apartment, containing the complete version of the software Centrix was desperately trying to develop. While Richard paraded around playing tech mogul, I'd spent every night for 3 years building something revolutionary. The idea had come during my first week as a secretary, watching the company struggle with outdated systems and inefficient processes. I tried to suggest improvements, drawing on my computer science degree from MIT, paid for by my late father's insurance money, before Mom married Richard. Richard's response had been swift and cruel. Know your place, Emma. You're here because your mother begged me to give you a job. Don't mistake that for actual merit. So I'd learned to play my part, the quiet secretary, efficient but unremarkable, all while building Nova Technologies in secret, filing patents under my maiden name, and developing the very solutions Centrix couldn't figure out. Emma, Richard's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. Stop dawdling and help Mrs. Phillips with her coat. And try not to wrinkle it. It probably costs more than your yearly salary. If he only knew that my yearly salary had just become pocket change compared to Nova's valuation. But tomorrow would change everything. Tomorrow, Phillips Global would see 2 software demos, one from Centrix's struggling development team, and one from the mysterious Nova Technologies that was taking the industry by storm. My phone buzzed again. Marcus, they just released the press announcement about the funding round. Your stepfather's people will see it any minute. Right on cue, I heard gasps and murmurs as executives checked their phones. Richard's voice cut through the noise. What do you mean, Nova Technologies? Who the hell are they? I slipped out to the registration desk, hiding my smile. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving people wrong. It's about letting them discover just how wrong they were all by themselves. And Richard Morrison was about to discover just how wrong he'd been about his quiet, ambitious stepdaughter. The morning after the gala dawned bright and tense. Centrix offices were buzzing with nervous energy as executives huddled around computer screens, reading the latest news. Novatech Technologies RAIC is $500 million at record evaluation. Mystery STARTUP POSDD to disrupt enterprise software market. CENTRIX SOLUTI awareness still CK PLUMETs as competitors emerge. I sat at my desk outside Richard's office, calmly fielding panicked phone calls while watching the chaos unfold. My stepsister Ashley, recently appointed VP of Marketing despite having 0 qualifications, stormed past in a designer suit. Daddy, she burst into Richard's office. Have you seen these articles? This Nova company, They're claiming to have exactly what Philips Global wants. My phone lit up with a message from Marcus. Philips' team arrived early. They're asking about Nova's demo. I smiled, remembering how I'd spent the last year carefully cultivating relationships with Philips' technical team, letting them discover Nova's capabilities while keeping my identity hidden. They'd been the ones to insist on seeing both companies' demos today. Emma, Richard barked. Get in here. I walked into his office, notebook ready. He and Ashley were hunched over his computer, faces tight with stress. Cancel everything except the Philips meeting, he ordered. And get the development team up here now. If we lose this contract, he trailed off, running a hand through his graying hair. Of course, I replied professionally. Though you should know that Nova Technologies has requested a meeting slot with Philips as well. They're already in conference room B. What? Richard exploded. Who authorized that? Mr. Philips himself, I answered calmly. He insisted on seeing both presentations. Both? Richard's face darkened. You knew about this? Why wasn't I informed immediately? I sent you 3 memos last week, I reminded him. They're in your inbox, marked urgent. Don't get smart with me, girl, he snarled. Just because your mother married me doesn't mean you're irreplaceable. If he only knew how true that was, but not in the way he meant. The next hour was chaos. Centrix's development team scrambled to prepare their buggy, incomplete software for demonstration. Ashley tried desperately to reach her contacts at Philips Global, only to discover they'd all been replaced months ago. My phone buzzed again. Marcus, everything's ready. Should I start without you? No, I typed back. I'll handle this demo personally. At exactly 10 a.m., I slipped away from my desk and headed to conference room B, where the Philips team waited. James Phillips looked up in surprise as I entered. Miss Chen, isn't it? The secretary? There must be some mistake. We're waiting for Nova Technologies' representative. I smiled, pulling out my own laptop. No mistake, Mr. Phillips. I'm Emma Chen, CEO of Nova Technologies. Shall we begin? The demonstration was flawless. 3 years of late nights and hidden work had produced something revolutionary. A system that could seamlessly integrate any enterprise operation, with capabilities Centrix's team hadn't even dreamed of. This is incredible, Philips' CTO breathed, watching the system process in seconds what normally took hours. When can we implement? Immediately, I replied. We've already built custom modules for your specific needs. But how did you know? Philips started, then understanding dawned. All those questions you asked while handling our meeting schedules. You were gathering requirements. I nodded. The best way to understand a client's needs is to listen, something Centrix never quite figured out. Suddenly, the conference room door burst open. Richard stood there, face purple with rage, clutching a tablet displaying Nova's press release, and my photo as CEO. You? He choked out. This is impossible. Actually, I stood calmly. It's quite possible. Your 11 a.m. demo won't be necessary, Mr. Phillips. Unless you like a comparison. Phillips raised an eyebrow. I don't think that will be necessary. We'll have our legal team draft the contract with Nova immediately. As Phillips and his team filed out, Richard grabbed my arm. You duplicitous little. Careful, I warned quietly. You wouldn't want to cause a scene in front of our biggest potential client. Well, Nova's biggest potential client now. His grip loosened as the full implications hit him. Without the Philips contract, Centrix would lose its market position. Their stock was already dropping. Why? He whispered. I straightened my simple blazer. No designer labels needed when you're worth billions. Because you taught me to know my place, I smiled. And my place, as it turns out, is at the top. The next morning, Centrix Solutions was in free fall. The news of Philips Global signing with Nova Technologies had triggered an avalanche. Centrix Solutions major contract to start rival Nova CEO revealed as former Centrix STCRDTR. TCG World Stan and by STPDAGGTR's CQRE SAUCTS. I arrived at Centrix one last time, not as a secretary, but as the CEO of their biggest competitor. The same employees who had barely noticed me now stared openly as I walked through the lobby, heading for the emergency board meeting Richard had been forced to call. My mother met me outside the boardroom, tears in her eyes. Emma, honey, why didn't you tell me? Would you have been able to keep it from Richard? I asked gently. She shook her head, then straightened her shoulders. I filed for divorce this morning. I should have done it years ago, when he first started trying to crush your dreams. Inside the boardroom, the tension was thick enough to cut. Richard sat at the head of the table, looking like he aged a decade overnight. Ashley huddled in a corner, furiously texting her socialite friends. The board members watched me with a mixture of shock and calculation as I took my seat. Well, Richard finally spoke, his voice hoarse. I suppose you're here to gloat. Actually, I opened my laptop. I'm here to make an offer. The room fell silent as I pulled out the documents on the main screen. Nova Technologies is prepared to acquire Centrix Solutions, I announced calmly, at a premium to the current market price, which, as you've noticed, isn't doing very well this morning. You want to buy us out? Ashley shrieked. Daddy, you can't let her. Your father doesn't have a choice, I interrupted. The shareholders are already calling for his resignation. Without the Philips contract, your stock will continue to plummet. And once word gets out about the other contracts I'm about to take, Richard's face went pale. Other contracts? I smiled. Did you really think Philips was the only client I got to know as your secretary? I've spent 3 years learning everything about this company, its weaknesses, its vulnerabilities, its unhappy clients. All while you were too busy reminding me to know my place to notice what I was actually learning. The board members shifted uncomfortably. One of them, Janet Harris, spoke up. What are your terms, Ms. Chen? Full acquisition. Current employees keep their jobs, except senior management, of course. The Centrix name becomes a subsidiary of Nova Technologies. And what about us? Ashley demanded. What about our family's legacy? Your family's legacy? I raised an eyebrow. You mean the company my mother helped build before Richard pushed her out of management? The one where he hired his daughter as VP despite her only qualification being her last name. I turned to the board. Nova Technologies believes in merit, not nepotism. We promote based on ability, not family connections. Under our management, Centrix will become what it should have been all along, a true technology innovator. The next hour was a blur of legal documents and board votes. Richard sat in stunned silence as his empire crumbled, watching as the directors eagerly accepted my offer. By lunch, Centrix Solutions was mine. As security cleared out Richard and Ashley's offices, I found something interesting. A memo from 3 years ago, where I actually outlined the exact software solution Nova had built. Richard had dismissed it as secretarial overreach. Should we donate their personal items to charity? My assistant asked. No, I decided. Have them delivered to their homes. Let them keep their designer labels. They're going to need something to hold onto. Later that evening, I sat in my new office, not Richard's ostentatious suite, but a simpler space overlooking the city. Marcus joined me, bringing coffee in the same paper cups we used during our late-night coding sessions. You could have crushed them completely, he noted. Why the generous buyout? Because this was never about revenge, I replied. It was about building something better. I showed him the plans for Nova's next project, a tech education initiative for underprivileged students. Besides, I smiled, success is the best revenge, and nothing says success like turning your stepfather's company into a force for positive change. The next morning, I called my first company-wide meeting. The changes would be significant: merit-based promotions, innovation incentives, comprehensive benefits. Some of you knew me as just a secretary, I began. Others never noticed me at all. That's going to change. At Nova, we believe everyone deserves a chance to rise based on their abilities. Looking out at the faces, hopeful, nervous, excited, I saw dozens of others like my younger self, full of potential, just waiting to be recognized. 1 year later, Nova Technologies was featured in Forbes, the secretary who became a tech titan, how Emma Chen revolutionized enterprise software. Richard now runs a small consulting firm in Phoenix. Ashley sells real estate in Miami. Their story became a case study in business schools about the danger of underestimating talent. But this isn't a story about their fall. It's about what rises when we judge people by their capabilities instead of their titles. Last week, a young intern stopped me after a meeting. Is it true, she asked, that you built all this while working as a secretary? I built this, I corrected gently, because I was a secretary. Sometimes the best ideas come from the people who see the whole picture, not just the corner office view. She smiled, standing a little straighter. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in proving others wrong, but in showing others what's possible. Mother lives with me now, helping run our charitable foundation. She still makes me coffee every morning, but now it's not to help me survive another day under Richard's thumb. It's to fuel another day of building something meaningful. That's the lesson Richard never learned, but it's the one I teach every day. True power isn't about keeping others in their place. It's about helping everyone find the place where they can shine brightest.